So, hello and welcome. This is one of my 60 conversations for my 60th birthday. And today I have the delight and pleasure to speak to the lovely Gabriela. We have actually met in person at the Viva event. If anyone doesn't know what the Viva event is, definitely check it out. It is well worth going to. But we are on different continents now as we are speaking. But yeah, I'm really excited for our conversation today. We've just had a little chat before we started and there's some exciting things come up there. So I'm really excited to see where this will go. So do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and let's
Sure,
see what comes.
sure. My name is, I have a very long name,
Yeah,
Gabriela
I didn't
Maldonado
even attempt it.
Montano. Yeah, and I've shortened it. I don't know if you can see, but in my box here it just says Gabriela MM because it's just so long. So Maldonado Montano. I'm originally from Mexico City, which is a huge city with lots of colors and lots of culture and lots of food, of course, which is one of my passions. I love to eat. Um, I live in California. I live in a small town called Gilroy, which is at the very tip, south tip of the Silicon Valley. And I have been learning about the principles since 1996 after actually I was in the middle of a divorce. I was working for a nonprofit and Dr. Roger Mills said in that training, there is a part of you that's untouchable. And I recognized that to be true, but I had forgotten it in that moment because I was feeling so sad. So when he said, there's a place in you that's untouchable, I felt it in my body. I felt like a tingling, like, yes, oh, we forgot. Yes, this is true. And that training changed my professional life because I studied clinical psychology. I was going to go get a master's and a PhD and this and that. And, I had a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. I like to be organized. And then it was like, okay, let's just erase that. And since that moment, I have been learning about the principles. I got invited through the Department of Alcohol and Drug Services, which was part of the county of Santa Clara here in California, to be part of a long-term training. And so we were in training for 2.5 years, almost 10 days a month, which was just an incredible amount of time. There was a lot of generosity happening that I was completely unaware of at the time. I was just like, oh, this is nice. And now I look back and I just realized how generous my work was, right, to release me, and then the department to train me. And then at some point I started working for the county, and it was sharing the principles with about everyone of every age, of every ethnic background, of every kind of work for 10 years. So English, Spanish, and blah, 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 blah. So it was a wonderful experience because I got to practice sharing the principles, with kids in a way that they could understand it, and with adolescents, with professionals, with executives, with inmates, with students, with teachers, with nurses, in the middle of the street, literally, right? I mean, it was just full on as far as how many hours I was able to share. And not only me, but there were at one point 5 full-time staff and around 20 part-time contractors. So it was incredible. It was just, it was incredible. I think at the height of this, we were teaching, I think, 40 classes a week. So it was a lot of teaching, a lot of sharing. So I learned a lot. Then I left and started my own consultancy. I had always done that, a lot slower pace, which is nice, you know. And now my clients are mostly actually from outside the country. So I talk a lot to people in Latin America, some in the States, Spain, blah, blah, blah. So I have been very blessed. My career has slowly unfolded.
Mm.
I have little plans, and sometimes they go on, sometimes it's like, no, forget about that. Silly you. There's something else. So currently, what I'm doing is I'm actually working with a nonprofit in New York City that's called Practice of Peace Foundation, which is based in the principles, the services, so in their mission and their vision. They talk about health realization, which is a name that we used to use for the principles, and have private clients and all of that. So that's what I've been up to.
I love it. I love it. And I love when you shared, because this is what I'm really, really seeing. I know with the world that we live in today, it can really seem crazy. And I know very briefly before we jumped on here, we kind of talked about, isn't it, what we have been very lucky, very blessed to come across and begin to understand the hope that it holds. And what I hear there in what you share, and we also talk briefly about God, I'm quite happy to own that. But I really love in spite of everything that, all the terrible things that are happening in the world, or whatever, the light of hope, that the thread, that light that also follows that, you kind of see, and what you shared, the generosity, the love, whatever, mind, God, the power behind life, whatever words you put on that, it always seems to me that in spite, we can focus on these terrible things, and in many, many ways, I see, for me, it is good to be like, what are you sad about in the world that maybe you could make a difference? Where could you make a difference? That takes the focus off me and poor me and victim me and all the things that it's so easy to get into, and looking in that way. And it was really lovely in what you shared to kind of to see, yeah, there is always something at work there. There is always hope. There is always mind, whatever, in seemingly in the background, and maybe not so much in the background sometimes, but as much as terrible things seem to be going on, there is also so much hope in this and in what we get to share and what we get to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting conversation because for me this year, we're on 2025. It's been a year where I've experienced a lot of distress because of the political landscape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not only not only in the country that I live in, right, but across the world. So that's been very interesting because I have been quite upset at times, saddened, concerned about humanity and all this stuff. But what's interesting is that, like as you said, there is this opportunity to see more. And the question that arises for me is, how can you be of service?
Yeah.
So I know that there are people that quit their jobs, and they go and they do these marvelous things, in a much more active way than I have. I have not been called to do that yet. But one of my greatest concerns is maybe the lack of kindness that I perceive in the landscape currently. And so, I hear inside of me, okay, well, if you're so concerned with kindness, right? If that's your bubble, then how can you really share that? How can you spread that right now? And I love that. I love that when I'm no longer distracted with the outside, and I can, there's a moment that insight comes that moves me into the direction that I really want to walk, right? And then I'm also seeing a lot about thought. It's remarkable.
Yeah, do share.
Well, most of the time, I do see that what I experience is only my thinking. That our human experience comes from the inside out. I see that most of the time. I share that most of the time. And then here we are. And just somebody last week asked me, well, do you think that has something to do with thought? I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with thought. That's not thought. And intellectually, I know, and maybe we're like very, very deep in the, the depths of my soul. But I have to tell you that a lot of the time right now, it does feel like my feeling state, it comes from the outside. I am completely blinded by the fact that we experience life from the inside out. I mean, that there are moments where I'm like, no. And then there are so that can't be, not with this. This is really the exception, which is interesting because I have not experienced that a lot. But with this, I can absolutely say, no, this is the exception. It feels like that at times. And so what's gifted me this way that I'm experiencing life so often right now is a sense of compassion for people and kindness, like, oh, you wanted this? Okay, well, you go. And a sense of understanding too.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely feels, really, like it is coming from the outside, and it feels alarming, and I feel reactive, and so I can appreciate how other humans feel like that too. So it's helping me, which is something that I've always appreciated when I experience these moments. It's helping me to kind of like tone it down a little, right? Don't be so quick to pull the trigger with, this is inside out, blah, 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 because it feels so much like it's not. And so it's helping me to maybe walk more gently with clients, more gently with my friends. So all of it is kind of coming together. And then, of course, I am seeing how consciousness does such a great job, right, at using our being, our physical being and our psychological being. And I'm in these reactions, Deb, that are, they have me like so upset with anger or so upset with sadness. And my body, it's like, yes, it's like a perfect cocktail. It's a perfect cocktail. So I'm learning a lot. It just feels to me like every year I say that, it's like, man, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. And then here comes the next year. And I'm like, oh man, I'm learning a lot. So I appreciate that, the nature of what we're talking about and how it's endless. Things like at this moment.
And it was really beautiful in, like you'd said, that your calling was around kindness. And I really see that we are all individual aspects of the divine, divine mind. We're all there. Definitely, I can see the oneness, the one body, if you like, and then like we're all the individual cells of that body, and each cell has its own, is unique and individual in its way, and we are called to do different things. That's just the way of it. It wouldn't, if you think of a body, a physical human body, if we were all the heart or all the brain or all the whatever other things we have, millions and millions of things, it just wouldn't work. That there are lots of different ones. So it's really good to listen and to know what our calling is. And then it never ceases to amaze me, like in what you said. It's like, yeah, I'm interested in kindness. That's definitely, I could feel a calling. I could feel something around that. And then this happened to you, and it's like, wow, this is teaching me about kindness. It's almost like, yeah. And sometimes they're not the easiest lessons. I know for me in this, like, we bought, me and my partner have got a plot of land, and we are building a home here. I mean, it's a small a building plot, and we're building a home, and I know nothing about this kind of thing. And I was fully aware when it felt like this was an invitation from God to me, to do this build. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But in the same way, it's literally like some of the lessons that I have learned through doing this, and I'm continuing to learn, it definitely keeps me humble. It reminds me, like you say, if my clients are kind of going, oh, this terrible thing's happened, it's easy to think, yeah, well, that's just your thinking. And then something's going on for me, and it's like, oh yeah, it must feel that real to, what's going on for me, that must feel that real for them. So it is, I really see how what we are called to, what we ask for, there is, like, you can see the response there, can't you, from mind, consciousness. It is like it's a living, responsive thing that comes. And as we are called to something and get curious about, what is kindness, we get shown.
Yes, because it's easy to be kind with gentle situations, right?
Yeah.
It's easy. But it's a little bit more challenging when you are in the midst of something that you profoundly disagree with, like on kindness, right? Like what I perceive to be aggressive behavior or lack of respect for humanity, which I just see as basic, I don't know, values, I guess. So yes, I am learning a lot about all of that, and also about stepping back. Like, I'm not always graceful. I mean, sometimes I'm very ungraceful, and sometimes I'm quite aggressive too. And that's been interesting. It's been interesting to experience aggression, like having thoughts of aggression and feeling so righteous about it. Because it's really, it's really seeing thought, right? So yes. Yes. So I do have judgment about people that are, aggressive with other humans. But I tell you, I've had a lot of thoughts that I'm like, oh my God. I will spare you the details of my thinking, but in the moment when I'm experiencing aggression, aggressive thoughts, it feels so compelling.
Yeah. I would concur.
Would you concur? Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in one sense, it even makes you kind of understand the people that are doing things that you don't understand, if you like, because you're kind of like, if it feels that compelling to them, how could they do anything different? Because one of the things, like in my story many years ago, you know, and how I came to the principles, I was in a very abusive relationship. And after I got out of that relationship and I was having counseling and a lot of help and things, one of the things that always confused me was I was seen as a victim and none of this was my fault. And yet the perpetrator, well, they should have known better. And there was something in me, and as much, you know, there definitely were violent acts and things like that. And I, you know, but you know, as a whole, and certainly when you kind of step back a little bit, it was like, why could I not help my thinking and not help you know, my part of getting into that situation, if you like, and the part I played? How is it that I am completely getting off scot-free? And I don't, you know, and yet everybody is saying that he should have known better, he should have thought differently, he should have seen something differently. And definitely coming across the principles and seeing this has really changed my view of that and kind of shown me we were both victims of thoughts that we believed to be true, that looked real and true. And I know, you know, some of the terrible things that he did to me and his children. It was like, I can see with the thinking that he had that he believed to be true, he had no more choice than I did when I witnessed these things happening to my children and didn't walk away and, you know, didn't take my children away. It's like neither one of us, with our level of understanding and what we believe to be true, could have done anything any different, which is, yeah. Oh.
I'm sorry, go on, I'm
No,
sorry.
no. It was just that really. And it's just kind of saying exactly with what you're saying. I think it reminds us when we have these moments and feel this injustice and aggression and these kinds of things, and it looks so real to us. It's like, well, the perpetrators or whatever you call these people, they're living that too. And then it comes back to, for me, so how can I do something different and break this cycle, not become a part of the problem? How can what I do and what I bring to the situation be something different?
Yeah, it's just a lot what you just said, and that there's so much there. You know, so some of you might have heard me say that my husband and I belong to different, we're not like this, but we're kind of like this, okay? And I'm getting glimpses of what you're saying in this situation. Like he really believes this to be the best thing possible. And I really believe this to be the best thing possible.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're both acting from what we think would be the best thing possible.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm even seeing that, but glimpses. It's kind of like, it goes like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
At a more national level for me. Which has been very interesting. And actually, I was very opposed to seeing that. I was like, no, that can't be.
I don't want to know that.
Right.
Mm.
And seeing our response, I'm also seeing my common response to whatever, right? To whatever. And so, you know, I have apparently, you know, my flag is being compassionate and kind. It just, I don't know why. I think it's just very important to be compassionate and kind, right? but I had a very narrow definition. And life right now is, I see that's helping me extend, and expand the definition of this. And just exactly what you said is like, oh, yes, given what's happening in the mind, of course, this would happen. And so, as I'm feeling, because I've had moments of like, I mean, my brain just cracks, just goes like, what is happening? But as I'm experiencing that and so much dislike and aggression, oh my, it feels like I could not feel any other way in that moment. I feel like it's the logical thing, and truth. It feels like truth. It feels like truth, right? Because I feel it. I feel it so intensely. And so I started playing with this concept that I'm reading a book that's called When Things Fall Apart by a Buddhist nun. And she talks about, well, this is what I understood. You have habits, right? I have habits of thinking.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like kindness, or just be, compassionate or whatever. And then something happens that I see as this is not aligned with how I think all of us should be living life. Like not only me, but all of the humans in the world, right? And I have certain ways that are familiar to me. I have certain thoughts that are, I don't know what's up with that, but they're just common. It's like, oh, this happens, this comes up, right? This happens, this comes up. And in reading this book, somehow what I saw is, oh, there could be an insight in the moment that gives us a little space to see that there is infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's been beautiful.
Yes.
Because I can be in the middle of like, and then these little insights happen, and it's just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, maybe like, okay, girl, don't react so quickly. Let's just take a moment. And then there's the space, and it's not even, Deb, like I think of another option. It's just that I'm seeing, oh, there are other options.
There is possibility.
There is possibility. And immediately it's just like, so of course that has to be true.
Yeah.
Right? But a minute before I, experienced all of these, insights and thoughts and blah, 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 I really didn't think there was any other possibility. Yeah. I really thought, man, I'm going to have to drink a lot this next 4 years. I don't know how I'm going to make it.
I believe you.
So, I really appreciate what you said, because when we behave badly, there's a lot of judgment, and certainly there are consequences, right? And certainly there are rules or regulations, and there is what's maybe healthier. But I have learned a lot. Oh, this is why, right? This is why you're being unkind. So in those moments, my heart softens. And then I can see the human again, as opposed to the monster behind the acts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It is easy to view people who do things that we fundamentally disagree with. And like you say, when we fundamentally disagree with things, what we see absolutely appears in us as right and true. And so it is when somebody fundamentally does something different to us, it can be very easy to close down and not be open to possibility. And I guess for me, that is the whole point of looking in this direction, of seeing what it is the principles offer. Because definitely when I came across the principles, I wasn't long out of that relationship, and I had no idea how to parent my kids. I was not in a good place on any shape or form, and it was like seeing possibility where before it looked like there wasn't any possibility. It just looked like I had completely screwed my entire life up and my kids' life up, and whatever. And it was like the principles opened me up to another possibility. And I guess that is the hope in what we are pointing to, however bad things look. And I guess our own, like for me, that was a very personal journey, and it very personally looked very, very bad. But whether it is literally something personal and our stuff, or whether it is something worldwide, for me, the hope in looking in this direction is that opening to possibility. It opens us up to possibility. And when we see possibility, that's what, all of these things, that everything that's going on at the moment, you could see they are cycles. It's not what I see, with the relationship I was in. It was exactly like you're describing. This happened, then this happens, then this happens, and it just goes around. This happens, they do this, you do this, they say this, you do. And it's that, isn't it? And we've all been born into those things and trained in those things, in many sense, been taught that's how life is and that's what you do. And then to come to something like the principles, to come to something and just see, do you know what, there's another possibility here, that the hope that brings is massive in however huge these things look. And that, over my time looking in this direction with stuff that came up for my children and other family members and myself again and again, that's kind of what I see. If we have the courage to look in this direction, however much our head is screaming at us and saying this is true or whatever, if we just have the courage and are just aware of insights, because I think sometimes those insights are there within us and we just don't. It doesn't look to me like mind is not at work at sometimes, because I can now, when I look back, I can see even through those dark years, it was like mind was kind of telling me things and waiting for me to hear it. It wasn't like it was never there. So it looks to me, even in the darkest of our times, there is light there, and it's like, okay. And so to me, looking in this direction and understanding it opens us up to the insight of that light and that possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I love what you said about the intelligence of life is ever present in us, because that's what we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There is this comedian, and I don't know his name, but he's kind of like an interesting character because he's a comedian, but he's also like really deep. And so he was saying, it's like we are characters on a screen in a movie, right? And we think that if we move around to certain places in the screen, we're no longer on the screen. But as long as you're characters of a movie on the screen, it doesn't matter where you are, you will always be on the screen, right? So the way that I heard that is, of course, life and this universal wisdom is speaking and whispering sometimes. Sometimes it's like slaps us. I think sometimes it's like, hey, pay attention, right?
Yeah.
There's whispers. There are these whispers, and they're subtle. I mean, I've had very subtle insights that have been so transformative, and then I've had these huge insights. And so the context of, this is so funny, because the context of my emotionality and the strength, because currently, well, up to this point, the volume is turned up in my emotionality. Like we're at the max. Well, maybe not the max, but we're getting there, right? And I get the sense while I'm experiencing this emotionality that that's the only thing there is, right? And I think what I'm learning right now, you know, what I was sharing with you about the book is like, okay, hold on. The emotionality and the volume of the emotionality, that's your signal. There's something here. And it's not signaling that you're right. It's signaling that you're lost in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And then that little pause, I guess, in the absence of so much noise, and you can hear the whispers that are, I agree with you. I think they're there all the time. I mean, I think if we really like slow down a little bit, you can hear them, you can see them, right? And it's almost like you turn around, you look at them, and you're like, okay, whatever, let me move on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
beautiful. It's really beautiful.
So that's hopeful. It's hopeful to know, you know, to bring it into more psychological terms, I guess, to realize that there is resourcefulness in us all the time, that there is creativity in us. You know, when you were talking about creativity just a minute ago, you used another word, but how humans, we have the capacity to come up with new ways all the time.
We do.
We do. And it brought to mind this these two characters. So, you know, Mexico City, which is where I'm from, is an enormous city. It has currently, I think, 23 million people in a little valley. So the in comparison, California, which is a huge state, has 40 million people. And Mexico City has like over half in this much smaller space. So traffic, as you can imagine, can be right, just horrendous. And one of the things also that can be horrendous is the number of people walking the streets and crossing the streets, because there are so many people. And it can be frustrating, I suppose, right? Because there's so much traffic, there's so many people. And there are these two characters that dressed up as Roman warriors, okay? And they were one on each side of the street, right? And then you can see that there are people gathering to cross, a lot of people behind them, right? And then when the light turns green so people can cross the street, they turn towards the people that are waiting to cross the street and say, let's go. And they go, ah! You know, like they're battling each other, and everybody's laughing, and everybody's just like now experiencing what is generally a frustrating event with lots of laughter, you know, and a lot of joy. And I looked at something so simple and I thought, you know, there is our creativity and there is our resourcefulness. And there are these two people in the middle of 23 million people, right? That had this idea
Yeah.
to lighten up an
Mm,
event.
mm,
And it's, you know, that's not a very impactful event, really. But I just thought if it can occur in that,
yeah.
it can occur in anything. And I often don't see that right now. I have to say, often don't see it. I'm like, oh no, you know, I get blinded.
Mm,
But that's in the back of my mind.
yeah.
That brings me hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think, like you said, the capacity for human beings to innovate, to be creative, to think of new ways of doing things, that because we are connected to mind and that's where it's coming from, that's infinite. And the only thing, I spoke to you about this before we came live on the call, uh, this experiment I'm doing looking towards love and not fear. And one of the things that I really see there is the thing that closes down our ability to create, that you know really brings that, you know, shuts it down in that sense, is fear. You know, when we move out of fear, our ability to create, to think anew, to hear the insights, to hear the callings, to hear mind, whatever, it's like it. And it's not that we can't when we're in fear. It's not that it's, I mean, as we said, it's never not there, but our ability to become aware of it, to become creative, to use that in a positive way, gets so squashed. And which in a sense for me, like when these kinds of things are going on in the world, which is why it is so important for us, in our understanding and seeing this, to kind of see that actually our anger and our frustration, all of those fear-based things, are actually, they're not going to be conducive to us seeing something new, to us innovating, to us, you know, seeing possibility. And so, like you say, it's recognizing, yeah, that feeling that we get, although you know, the panic feeling, the anger feeling, whatever it is, even though it feels justified, it feels real, it feels like we'd be stupid not to do that, that any sane, kind, nice person would feel this in this instance, and all of that, you know, it is like recognizing that actually that feeling is telling you that you're moving away from your creativity and the possibility to create something different in this situation, and we're becoming more a part of the problem than a part of the solution. So that to me is also so hopeful, in just in those tiny cracks within us, in seeing, yeah, and seeing how it gives us both sides of it, doesn't it? It's like, wow, I get how real this looks to people. I get why people are doing what they're doing. And with what I know that looking towards love and possibility is what is going to help us, is what is going to get us somewhere better, get us to where we want to be, not in here. So for me, kind of the fact that we can get drawn in and get feel all those things and feel it so real, that's not a mistake in the system either, because that really reminds us, it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is why people are doing what they're doing, because it feels this real to them. It's like, I'm really struggling, even with everything I know, I'm really struggling not to strangle someone or murder someone or argue with someone or whatever it is, you know. But then seeing the hope of, okay, if I do understand what's going on and calm down and hear mind and listen for that possibility, what is possible in that? That's the hope that this is.
Yes. And I really like that so much. I like that, as you said, if we're not feeling, you know, kindness and love and all of that, it's not, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that. But it's nice to recognize it as a little signal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just
Mm.
be mindful, right? I also really love the fact that we can't help it but to gain a bit of perspective of times. You know, that built in our spiritual being and our psychological being, we will have insights.
Yeah.
That will, right? Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know what I really love is I really love reflecting on, okay, what does it mean that I am an expression of life? And that as we understand more and more and more, we can benefit. We can harness, I don't know if harness is the right word, but we can just benefit. Because sometimes the best that I can do, honestly, is just go for a walk. Like, that's just the very best I can do. I cannot muster anything else.
Mm.
And that's perfectly wise.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like I can be like, and then from the depths of my soul, or, you know, from mind, or, you know, however makes sense to people, there is this like tiny idea, like we said, right? Because mind's always talking to us. It says, go for a walk. And I'm like, okay, let me go for a walk. And so also seeing that has been really helpful. And what I mean is seeing that within the system that we belong to, there is a natural source of help.
Yes.
Like, okay, come this way. Okay, you know, come that way, right? Like, no, wait, hold, just be quiet. I mean, sometimes really that has really been helpful. Just be quiet because you're about to explode. So
So shut up, say nothing. Has definitely been very helpful to me at times.
sure.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah, like you, I am very grateful to understand what I understand. I'm also very excited to see that the depth of what we're talking about is really, 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 really big, if not infinite.
Mhm.
And so I can see more and I can learn more. And if I really want to be of kindness and compassion, this period is really expanding
Mm.
the depth and definition of what I thought possible, really. It's really been remarkable. And I also love that. That keeps me humble. You know, the system keeps me humble. It's like, oh, really? You think that you're so, you know, kind and all of that? Let me throw a curveball, right? And let's see. So, yes, this is a full-on experience, Deb.
It really, really is. It really is. And that's what it's intended to be, isn't it? We're not here to sit on the sidelines. We are here to get our hands and hearts in the soil of life, it feels. And yeah, it can be trying at times.
Yes.
But
You know, I mean, there's another, additionally to the landscape, the political landscape, there is this personal situation that I have with a friend that's been diagnosed as terminally ill. And it's brought me to my knees, literally. You know?
Yep.
So it's been so interesting. So this book that I was telling you about, that is called When Life Falls Apart, somebody gifted to me last year, when everything, the landscape looked, from my perspective, more positive. Nothing was really happening, right? And then a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, said, oh, you know, this book is really good. And I remember reading the title. And I was like, oh, that's a funny title. Okay, well, everything's fine right now, but I'll read it. And I think, huh, what a gift I started reading it before everything started falling apart, in these two areas. And I thought, how generous, how generous life that, I mean, I don't know what that's all about. I have no idea what that's all about, but it certainly today feels like a gift. So we'll see. I just finished it yesterday after a year almost. And so, I'm just learning a lot, continue to learn a lot, which I like.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, it is endless learning, sharing what we learn, learning more, sharing. And I think in the sharing we learn. I mean, this for me is what these conversations are about. It is the more that we share and come together in community in these ways, we share with each other what we have seen, and you never know. Like even when you said about those two people in Mexico dressing up in that way, and it's kind of like, well, it's a small thing. One of the things that I see definitely, as I said, the word God works for me, mind, whatever, I don't mind, but it's like seeing very often movements when you look at Sid and what Sid did and the people that he shared with, movements can look quite small, and it can look like, what can two people do? What can one person do? What can two people do? But I really see that's often how it works. Often how it works. Never underestimate the power of what these small acts can do, because yeah, you have no idea the impact, which was definitely for me behind these conversations. It's like, I have no idea of the impact of some of these conversations, and it's absolutely fine if I never do. And if one person hears something in something that then brilliant. But it is like I was watching a film the other night, and I can't remember, what was it? I can't remember, but there was just one thing in this film, and these people, they could live for a very, very long time, and they were doing very small good things, and the lady was getting very disillusioned with it, and kind of like, we're not doing enough, and then someone had traced the things that she had done, and it was kind of like, you did this, you saved this one person when they were crossing the road and they thought they might get killed, and then they gave birth to this person who did this amazing thing, and this happened and this happened. So it is like, we sometimes have no idea the seeds and the small things, and it can look like when you were saying earlier, some people are called to go to another country and do all sorts of things, and you're called to be kind. And it's like, it can look like some of the things that we are doing that maybe it's not enough, and it's not big enough, and it's not grand enough.
Like these two guys that are dressed up, I'll send you
yeah, absolutely. It's like, yeah, we just have no idea.
There's another guy that dresses up as Spider-Man that comes down from bridges, right? And I am sure they never could imagine that I would be using their moment of creativity, in my sharings.
Exactly.
Like, how would that happen, right? They have like no idea. But somehow, I don't know, it just crosses the world or something, and we can learn, and just something as ordinary as, hey, let's help people cross the street with a sense of fun, has really been, impacted me, right? Which I'm in a different country now. So yeah, so I'm for that. So thank you so much, Deb, for having me here, and
if people want to get in contact with you and find out more about you, where can they find you?
Well, we're going to put that, I think,
in the show notes.
That's the thing. Reimaginingchange.com. .com. Sorry, no, erase that. I will definitely hold on. See,
we'll make sure it's correct in the show notes.
We'll make sure that it is. Hold on. See, okay, here we go. Reimaginingchange.org. reimaginingchange.org. .com belonged to somebody else, so .org.
Okay, because thank you so much for your sharing, for your honesty, because I think sometimes it can be very easy to pretend that we're all good and what have you. So I think honesty is so beautiful and needed. So thank you so much for your time, for being here.
Yes.
It's been a delight and a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and thank everybody, and have a beautiful life, beautiful, kind life.
Kindness, I'm all for kindness. Thank you.
Yes.